Hello everyone and welcome into our latest live broadcast. It's Friday, it's the 27th of March 2026, and my name is CareyHolzman. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today as we have a YouTube exclusive. In fact, I think it's a more or less an internet exclusive with this device right here that we ordered through Kickstarter using our funding that comes from our viewers, membership money and things. This is an example of how we reinvest the money back into the channel for more content. I think a lot of content reviewers only review content they get for free, and they don't actually, most don't go out and spend their own money like you would so that they can tell you whether or not you should spend your money. Seems a little hypocritical, doesn't it? But hey, don't let them spend their money to tell you whether or not you should spend yours. Now with that, before I go too far into today's show, I want to remind everybody that we have the special offer for our audience, which is the VIP-URCDKEYs website, which sells legitimate, legal, genuine Windows and Office activation keys. And unlike a lot of other key sellers online, we know for a fact these are genuine and authentic. We know for a fact that they will back you up and support you for up to 6 months after the sale, which is unheard of from Windows key sellers online. And they're going to charge you about 90% less than what Microsoft wants for the same exact license key. So not only are you paying less, you actually get better support, at least in my opinion and in my experience. And if you want to know how that works, below each video we have a video description, and I'm going to just cut away to a video here that I'm going to talk on top of. So here's a previous live video, and as I scroll down there, underneath the date, right underneath my logo, you'll see it says more. That's the video description I'm always referring to. And within that video description, if we scroll down, you'll see links that take you directly to Windows 11, Windows 10, different various Office versions. And if you click on one of those links, it's going to take you right to their website. You don't need to Google it. You don't need to search for it. It's just directly right there for you. So here we've got a license key of $33.34. You hit the Buy It Now button. Now here's the deal. You have to have an account. And the accounts are free, but the reason for that is so they can keep your receipt. So when you call in the future and say, hey, what's my product key? You can serve yourself here. So essentially you create your free account if you don't already have one. If you want to save a little bit more money, use the coupon code CAREY, as you see me doing there, and hit apply, and you'll watch that price drop. And then if everything looks good to you, hit the submit order button, and then you can process your payment. And what I really, really like, what I absolutely demand, is they've got to be able to accept PayPal. Because it's an international purchase, a lot of credit cards, they flag that as an unusual purchase when most people are buying within their own country. So when you buy something out of your country, the credit card company alerts you, and then people freak out. They're like, oh, there must be something suspicious. Yeah, the suspicious part is you bought something from another country. With PayPal, they deal with intercontinental transactions all the time. They deal with the exchange rates and all that stuff. So, and you don't have to worry about the exchange rate. It's already calculated there on the page. That's why you may see the price fluctuate between today, the 27th of March, as I'm showing you the video, and then whenever you watch this video, which, could be 2029, I'm sure the exchange rates and values would have changed since then. But regardless, it makes the process very easy. What they're going to do is they're going to send you an email that if you don't already have Windows or Office, they're going to show you where to get it from Microsoft legitimately. They do not provide the Windows or Office to you, but they do provide you a link to Microsoft where you can download it. That's how you know you're getting the real deal. Then they also include the activation key. So when prompted for activation, in the case of Windows, you would install Windows without the activation key. And then you would just type in the word activation in your search bar in Windows. And then it says, activate my Windows or change my product key, whatever yours says. And you click on that, it's going to say, what's your product key? You'll copy and paste. You don't even have to type it all in, just highlight it and copy it and then paste it right in there. Hit the activation button, you're done. And with Windows, it remembers that activation key for the life of your computer. So you never have to use it again. In the future, when you reinstall Windows, even without a Microsoft account, the very first time you go to Windows Update, You'll install Windows without a product key, just like you've always done before. Only when you go to Windows Update for the first time, during that process, it'll recognize your motherboard serial number, essentially, and then reassign the product key that was reserved for it. And it'll do that indefinitely. But if you try and install that product key on another computer, one of two things is going to happen. One, it's either just not going to activate, or two, it does activate, but now it won't activate on the other machine anymore if you ever have to reinstall. So that is a typical normal OEM license. You can't take a computer from a Dell. You can't take a license key from a Dell computer and throw it onto a different Dell computer or HP computer. It's not going to work. So that's how OEM keys work. Now, the retail keys do allow you to move them around, but they're 10 times more money. So unless you plan on moving your license key around 10 or more times, you're spending a lot more than you need to. All right, so I just want to give you proper expectations, and I want you to know that you have perfect peace of mind when purchasing from them. If you have any problems, they're there to make sure you're happy. Furthermore, I'm here to make sure you're happy. Even though I don't make any commission, whether you buy it or you don't, I'm here for you. So if you have any problems or questions, with regards to this process, my first advice, the first thing I suggest you do is just check with their support. You don't have to, but usually their support takes care of things pretty quickly. But always know that you can reach out to us directly if you need any assistance with acquiring the official download or the license key issues, anything like that. The buck stops with me regardless. In most cases, things never get that far. In the rare circumstance that something doesn't happen correctly, more often than not, it's a user making a mistake or misunderstanding. And that's okay. That's how we learn, and we're here to help you. In such a case where there's a problem, we will find a solution for you. But in most cases, again, the tech support that's offered for free for 6 months from our friends over at VIP-URCDKEys more than likely are going to take care of you. It's pretty rare anything has to escalate to me, but I want you to have that peace of mind that if you feel like, because I talk to a lot of people that say, well, if it's going to happen, it'll happen to me. Well, I still got your back regardless, and it's probably not going to happen to you. But if it does, it'll still be okay. All right. So thanks to our friends over at VIP-URCDKEys for continuing to offer this discount to our viewers, and thank you to all of our members, of course, as I mentioned, for making it possible for these videos to continue, so we can, go out and buy product and do independent reviews that are not paid for by any corporations, nor are we given any scripts. We do everything live and unrehearsed. It's genuine and it's real. Now, what drew my eye to the Arc KVM is it looks an awful lot like a JetKVM. And I thought, is that really just a JetKVM? In China, they don't really recognize intellectual property. So it's not, we might frown upon stealing somebody else's design, but that's not considered theft over there. That's just the business. So I don't know. I really don't know. The box is shrink wrapped. Maybe this is physically larger or smaller or different in other ways, or maybe it's an exact clone, but they have their own software. And what that means is anytime you order from Kickstarter, I need you to understand what you're doing. It seems like people think Kickstarter is Amazon, and you're going to get a complete product with a guarantee. That's not what Kickstarter is, and if that's what you're expecting, you should not be shopping there. When you're backing a product on Kickstarter, what you're saying is, I'm going to be an early investor, and I'm going to give you some money. And if they meet their funding goals, then they are obligated to whatever the contract is between you and them. They're going to send you a product, or they're going to do this, or they're going to do that. And they usually have like a shipping date. And so when I saw this, I found it on Kickstarter. I was just searching for an IP KVM, and this popped up. And I don't know who this company is. I don't know where they came from. Their link took me to a place that sold bicycles or e-bikes, which has nothing to do with this. It was very strange. So they had us all listed, but it wasn't yet publicly accepting contributions. It's like they were just getting it ready for about 6 weeks. And I found it early, and I was watching it like a hawk. Now the JetKVM, the sort of thing that kind of kicked all this off, one might argue the Nano KVM kicked it off, but the JetKVM, I think, had a bigger marketing splash compared to all the others. It got all the attention. That was about 18 months ago. And it was the same deal. You financed it through Kickstarter, you invested in it, and then within a few months, they would send you a prototype. Now, since then, JetKVM has enhanced their software to the point where it's available at retail. You can go to Amazon, you can buy one. Is it ever done? I don't know, but with regards to the software, it's far more complete today than it was for Kickstarter backers initially. It required a lot of updates to get it to where it is today. And why I'm telling you this is I've seen some people complain that the products they get at Kickstarter don't work entirely 100%. Yeah, they're not done. You're an early investor and you got an early prototype. I don't know what's so hard to understand about this. If you don't want to participate in prototypes, stay away from Kickstarter. That's the best advice I can give you. So I'm mentioning it because I know what's in this box isn't done yet. There's going to be updates, just like there was with the Nano KVM, just like there was with the JetKVM. And these updates can take, on average, between 6 months and 12 months before they really get to polishing all of the little the software that we're relying on, and the reliability, compatibility, the performance. All of that's going to be improved in time with any Kickstarter project. It's not an Amazon purchase. Now, if you bought it at retail and they shipped you something that wasn't quite done yet, then you'd have a right to be upset. But we don't expect all the features to be enabled on this, and nor have we ever seen anything come from Kickstarter that had all the features that were promised already good to go. But we should have a functional device that it's at its very basic functionality should be about 75% there. And then in addition, the 25% they're still working on, and they're not particularly features I'm interested in, but they'll also figure out, oh, we could also do this and we can do that, which is yet to be determined, to add features they never thought of or to enhance the performance in ways they never thought of. And you'll continue to get those updates for free. So you're not being abandoned or anything. So I feel it's necessary to remind everybody, and I'm going to say it again, when you invest, when you're an early investor in a product, your reward, in most cases on Kickstarter, is that you're going to get an early prototype and be one of the first to have it. That's how we got ours. This will not be, I don't know how many times I got to say it, a complete project. There's still things they're working on, but in order to meet their commitment, they did everything they could to stay on their schedule. So they said back in December that they planned to ship in March. Was it December or January? And they figured somewhere around mid-March. Now, what they weren't expecting to happen are the tariffs, and they weren't expecting the RAM shortages and price increases. And as a result, it's very hard to stay to your predicted price when all of a sudden, beyond your control, the price of the components you need is going up universally worldwide without any warning. But regardless of that, they still kept their word, all right? They still shipped it when they said they would. And the shipping took like 5 or 6 days, like from the time they told me they shipped it until I got it, from China into the US and then here to Arizona. It was fast. No signature was required. There were no added fees upon delivery. It just dropped off at the door like any other package you'd order. I did ask the folks at Arc KVM if they would send me a review unit prior to shipping out, fulfilling their early prototypes. And they said, hey, that sounds great. And then they got so backed up and so far behind, they ended up, and they felt bad about it, but they said, look, we really didn't want to ship it to you in the condition it was in a month ago. We didn't feel that would be fair to you or us. And we've been busting our butt night and day trying to get, basic functionality that we wanted, that's important to us. functional and working before we ship this to our investors, to our backers on Kickstarter. So instead, we're just going to ship you an extra unit, and we're going to throw in the ATX power board. So we'll take a look at those today, and my thanks to the folks at Arc KVM for sending these along, although we did buy one. Just so I'm clear, I have another one in the box, but I don't use these on tower or desktop computers, so the ATX board doesn't really benefit me, but I'll explain it to you and why you might be interested in it. And then I'm also curious, how does this compare to the JetKVM? So we'll take a look side by side at that as well, but know the JetKVM has had 18 months to polish their software. So I have no doubt, just proper expectations, the JetKVM is going to be a much more polished product because they've had 18 months to work on it more than ArkKVM has had, right? They're starting from scratch, and they've got a ways to go. At least if it's the prototype I think it is, and from what I understand, there's still a lot more work left to do, and that will all come for free through updates. But the hardware should be solid. Now, this KVM is going to be very similar to the JetKVM in all the specifications, the plugs, the cables. It's 1080, it's not 4K. There's no video pass-through. There's no Wi-Fi. So it's not the latest generation of KVM like from Cypede, the Nano KVM Pro, or from GLINet with the Comet Pro. Those are the only two on the market that are Wi-Fi, 4K, and video pass-through. And they're about twice the amount of money. I'm not sure what this sells for today because it's not available for sale yet. It's still a prototype. So I don't know, where do I start this? First of all, let me say hello to everybody. I'm so excited I want to tear into this. A shout out to our good friend Buster, who sends an Amazon gift card in lieu of Super Chat, as he always does. Thank you, Buster, joining us all the way from Edinburgh, Scotland. I also see our friend Oystein there from Sweden, from Norway, joining us. And let's see, let's scroll up here. And I see Isaiah saying hello, and John Rogers, Eddie Casanova, and Jonathan Fells, Edward Bass, and Sean Skinner. I see Mark Gaines and David Graham. There's also Ben Laird, Mark Baggett, Frank Jimmy joining us. Our friend Luke Greenia from Vermont saying hello. There's Buster letting us know the temperature in Edinburgh right now is 40 degrees Fahrenheit or 4.4 degrees Celsius. What I wouldn't give for that right now. Well, still, if we're not at 100 degrees, we are close to 100 Fahrenheit. Let's see. Katrina H says hello. Mike Gamer joining us here in the chat, along with Jim Kenny and Anthony SF. Dazzle555 and Mark Leibowitz are joining us and saying hello in our chat room. We are an interactive live worldwide broadcast, and we encourage you to participate with us, to interact with us. This is not television. This is modern day communication and socialization that's live and worldwide, where we all join together, that we're all friendly. You don't have to be smart, just be friendly. And we all share a common interest in technology, no matter where we live in the world, no matter our age, our race, our gender, our religion. None of that matters to us. Just be kind. And if you are, please jump in the chat room while we're live and say hello. It's completely free and open to everyone worldwide, unless you're rude. If that's asking too much, don't be bothered. Let's see, Andy W6AD joins us. And Stephen DeToit says hello. Michael Lavelle. David Herzog. Paul Vercher. Mark Leibowitz says it's a 45 degree Fahrenheit or 7 degrees Celsius day in Chicago right now. Wow. Phil Stodd says hello. Welcome in to everyone. And thank you for hanging out with me this Friday. Hope you're having a good end of your week and the start of a great weekend. I think I got everybody. I hope I did. If I missed you, let me know. Let's take a look at the Arc KVM website. I suppose that's as good a place as any to start. I think, is that going to work? Let's try something here. That should bring up their site. There it is. And the link here is in our video notes, of course. So this is Arc KVM's website. And they talk about the specifications of this unit being power over Ethernet ready. A lot of other companies charge extra for that. Out-of-band control. And that means that you don't have to be in Windows, essentially. You can do things like update the BIOS. This has support for 1080 by 60 hertz. Two-way audio. I'm not quite sure where that's used, but that's an interesting idea. Of course, it's got a web user interface. It is open source, although that code, just like all the others, they may not have the repositories up and running yet, but they will. And then, of course, it's for remote access. It says it's officially live on Kickstarter, but I'm wondering if we click on that, can you still buy it? You see, they started them off at 75 bucks, but this was before, you know, everything happened in the marketplace. So I'd be surprised if they have any of those available at that price. It looks like Kickstarter special, $99. Okay. $99. It says there's 18 left out of 50. So they didn't sell a lot of these, but they're still available. You can still pay for it and receive one. But it is a prototype. Now, depending on how similar this is to a JetKVM, on Amazon, you can order a JetKVM for $4 more. So I want you to keep that in mind if you're more interested in being part of a product development, or you just want to get a product that's already had 18 months. I don't want you to be upset that you're getting something you're not expecting, all right? So I'm getting exactly what I was looking forward to getting. I am not in any way disappointed. This is what I wanted. This is what I got. But just for full transparency and clarity, you have options. This is not your only option. There they have a 3-pack that looks like that's still available. 12 left of 45. So $229, though those works out to about $76 a unit. That's a pretty good price. That's a really good price. There's a 5-pack for $380, and that runs $76 per unit. Not a huge savings, but that's still a great price. So anyway, that's just how Kickstarter works. And when we look through their marketing materials to see how they promote it, a lot of this mimics what we've already seen from other remote KVMs. It's not the novel uniqueness that it was 18 months ago. However, until we get it out of the box, take a look at it, see how it runs, we can't tell if it's, you know, got more differences than it has similarities, or if those are more important to individuals, certain features that one may have that another one doesn't, that one person absolutely needs and another person doesn't. That's what we're going to determine today. So this ATX power control extension, that's what they sent me, and that's to control physically hitting the power button or the reset button by plugging this into the power and reset button headers on your motherboard. And then you can physically press those buttons by using the device remotely. So that gives you 100% control as long as your internet's up and running. Scrolling through here, you know, they mention it's crafted in Rust, which is a programming language. They give you some examples of how this could be used. I don't know who these people are leaving reviews because I've not found any reviews online. I don't know where this came from. We don't have last names, and I don't know if these are people in what country or what association they have to this company, but as far as I know, nobody on the internet got any review units. It is power over Ethernet ready, so you can just run this right off of power through the Ethernet cable. Again, this is not Wi-Fi. On the other hand, you still have to plug it in to USB keyboard and mouse, so I don't know what benefit PoE would have. I'm a little confused about that, but perhaps it's about, you know, when you shut the computer off, some computers lose power to USB. And if that's the case, you won't be able to connect to this if it loses power. If your internet cable is power over Ethernet, then it's delivering power with the internet in that cable. Or you can just plug it into a USB port or configure a BIOS on a lot of machines that you can tell it to leave power on the USB or buy an add-in USB card that does it. So a lot of different ways to solve that problem, but just so you know, that's who that's for. I love that it's only 2 cables, right? There's the HDMI cable and there's the USB cable. And of course, you're going to have an Ethernet cable. So I guess technically there's 3 cables. There's no software to install. And they want to add a feature where you can share the web camera of the other computer. Now, again, I don't know who that's for, but let me try my best to explain, at least as I understand it. When you're connected to a computer remotely, and that computer that you're connected to has a web camera attached, you could just bring the web camera up and look at it, as if you were sitting in, you know, right in front of that computer. But you can't use that as a video source because it's not your camera. So if I go to OBS and I want to broadcast from that camera, or if I want to use it for security, and I think I'm going to use this web camera, and anytime somebody moves anywhere around this computer that should be, let's just say it's in a server room and nobody belongs in there, I could virtually connect the web camera to my computer and load the software for monitoring for movement or any motion on that computer. Instead of just looking at it manually, I can actually connect it virtually as if it were connected to my computer and have this virtual webcam. I'm trying to imagine scenarios where you would need that, because I was struggling trying to figure out why would anybody want this. But I thought, well, that would be a good reason. Again, there's other ways to solve this problem, but okay. I mean, if it's got a webcam anyway and the device can do this, then you still have to come up with your own software solution to alert you to motion. And then that could send some kind of a notification or alert to you that perhaps somebody's in that room that doesn't belong there. But I wouldn't call this a security device. It's an interesting idea. I'm just not quite sure how many people would find a benefit in that. And that is one of the ideas they have not yet finished. So this does not have that yet, but they're working on the webcam sharing ability. Again, whether it worked or it didn't, I can't imagine any scenario where that's used. Perhaps they can enlighten us for some use case scenarios that justifies that, because I'm scratching my head going, interesting, but why? Maybe there's some other situations that I haven't thought of, I hope. But that would be an example that was what they were told they were making. But given the deadline that they want to keep for shipping, they weren't able to get that done yet. So rather than send it pokey and half working, they've just not enabled that feature yet. But it will come in an update. But again, it makes no difference to me personally. I have no idea why you'd want that. If I want to pull a web camera up when I'm connected remotely, I just connect to it on the remote machine. But if I want that web camera connected virtually to my machine here, that's what it's supposed to be able to do. And I'm just trying to figure out why. Two-way audio makes sense. In the ability to be able to talk to somebody, whether you're talking to somebody remotely, which again, you could just do from your main machine. I don't know why you do that remotely, to talk to somebody else remotely from there. But given that there's no video pass-through, I don't know who you're going to be talking to. Because essentially, this is their monitor and only you can see it. So I'm not sure who that's for either. Again, another use case scenario might enlighten me, and I only have my imagination right now to try and figure out who that's for. But that is supposed to be functional, and I'm sure there are people that, for whatever reason, maybe you want to watch a video on a computer that's in another country and you don't want to go through a VPN, so you could start up Netflix or whatever, have it streamed to that computer, and then remotely it's broadcasting the audio and video to you in whatever country you're in, as though you were sitting in front of that computer. But that's not two-way, that's all going one way. So again, I'm kind of stuck trying to figure that out. But let me get back over to the chat room real quick. Before we do the unboxing, I want to see if anybody's got any questions or concerns. Big Game James says, what do you think about the GLINet Comet 5G? Again, we run into a situation where I'm just not sure who that's for. So if you can give me an example of why somebody would want to connect remotely from a cellular or to a cellular. You're not connecting from, you're connecting to. So in what use case scenario, please enlighten me, would you need 5G on the remote side? Because remote implies it's in one place, you can't move it. Otherwise it'd be portable. Otherwise it'd be a laptop, right? You could just take it with you. Why would you need to remote to it when you could just bring it with you? And if it's portable and you're moving it around, 5G could be essential for when you're on an airplane or I don't know, traveling in general, a hotel. Although usually anywhere you go in the world today, there is public Wi-Fi at most hotels and restaurants and cafes. And so if anybody can explain to me an example of where a 5G remote unit on location would be useful, I would appreciate enlightening me, because I'm not aware of any problem that solves. When you have 5G on a portable device, like you carry it around with you on your phone, and then you're somebody who travels a lot, maybe wherever you go around the world and you have your phone with you, you want to be able to maintain your connection no matter what country you're in. Having 5G on your phone makes a lot of sense. But for something to be located and never move, to have 5G, because otherwise, what are you remoting into? So that, it just doesn't add up for me. But maybe I'm hoping there's some logic here, and I'm just not wrapping my head around it. But it's got to be so niche. I can't imagine the market for that's very big. Now, if the remote unit was something that you constantly carried around with you, and then you would plug it in, why aren't you just working on it while you're there? It's so stupid. I can't wrap my head around it. So please inform me what I'm missing. Bill Stott said KVMs in general aren't a mainstream product. Well, that's true. They are a niche in and of themselves. So we have a niche within a niche when it comes to a 5G KVM. If your audience was, 7% or 5% of computer users for a KVM, and now of those KVM users, you're finding some that need 5G, you're probably bringing that down to like 0.03% or something. I'm guessing. Yeah, what do I know? Maybe there's some other use case I'm not aware of, but it's certainly not popular. So yeah, to some extent, it is a niche product in the sense that if you're not needing to remote in somewhere, if you're not a technical person, it's not for you. But I imagine most people who watch this channel these days are more technical than the average computer user. And well, this channel has always been designed to break down the barriers between the technical and the non-technical users, to simplify and show that this is very easy. The general public interest in learning it has waned. A lot of people have just simply moved, at least as far as consumers go, have moved to phones. And a lot of consumers don't even have a home computer anymore, at least here in the United States. But businesses, on the other hand, and especially small businesses and businesses where people are self-employed, like real estate agents, may want a remote solution. But unfortunately, at least for me, there are two barriers. One is they don't know such a thing exists. They know you can remote in with software, and the software can be very expensive. I know TeamViewer at one point was over $600 a year for one license. This is a fraction of that cost. You never have to pay anything ever again. And, you know, it works forever. There's no subscription, nothing. So the first barrier is to let people know there's an option. The second barrier is to find people that need it. If you work for a big corporation, they've already got, that's the corporation's responsibility, right? But if you're a self-employed individual, or you're a technical person who, for whatever reason, your hobbies or your interests, you find that to be helpful to have a remote KVM, the first thing we have to do as educators is let you know this is a thing, because a lot of people to this day don't even know that's a thing. They've only really been available for about 2 years, maybe a little less. It's a whole new technology that only existed in corporate America. It was far too expensive and cost prohibitive for the average home user, and far too complex to run it. So now it's so simplified, but at the same time, it is still a niche product in the sense that how many people need remote access when a lot of those people got rid of their home computers. So, you know, we're not here necessarily to determine what our audience is interested in. I'm here to show you what I'm interested in, and I'm just sharing it with you. And I think sometimes people misunderstand the purpose of this channel. Most YouTube channels will pander to their audience to go, hey, what do you want me to do? What do you want, you know, you want me to dance for you? Do you want me to peel a banana? We don't do that here. I have a business to run, and I started this YouTube channel so I can show you what it's like to run the computer repair side of things and the things that interest a computer repair technician. This channel has always been to share a professional experience with my audience, not to pander to the audience. And for the audience that appreciates that, they'll stay. And for the audience that doesn't get it, they'll leave. So whether or not this product has any appeal to any percentage of our audience isn't important to me. What's important to me is I continue to share with you my experience and the tools that I use and why I use them, in the hopes that the people who are drawn to this type of content find value in that, because you don't typically find it from an enthusiast. Or the enthusiast just wants what they want for no particular reason. I can explain to you why I use this, how important it is, and what a big difference it's made in the profitability, customer satisfaction, and speed of which that I can perform repairs now. I wish I'd had that 20 years ago. I mean, it still requires the customer on the other side having a fast enough internet connection. And back in the day, that would have been a battle as well with DSL services or dial-up. You know, even if we had this, it probably would have been a struggle. But it still beats getting in the car and driving, let me tell you. And it opens repair up beyond local. I can work on any computer anywhere in the world. And using remote software has enabled that. And that was a combination of the evolution of bandwidth, being available to affordable for people. Back in the day, an ISDN line or a T1 line, you don't want to know how much that cost a company for 128K download. It was probably around $1,000 to $2,500 a month. Or you get a fractionalized T1 where you could split the cost with a neighbor, and each one of you gets half for whatever the fraction is, for a fraction of the price. But it was still, let me tell you, you know, we used to pay per minute on cell phones. We used to have to pick regions, and You could put family members on your list that were free to call, but anybody else, not so much. It used to cost money to send text messages, 10 cents for every text. All those days are gone now. And I need to remind our audience that times have changed. And the result is that the way that we do work has changed. And if you don't even know it's available, then how would you know it's an option? So I'm here to introduce you to these products. And these are products that I am genuinely interested in. And if you were running a business like I was, it would make sense that you would find this interesting and helpful. If you're just a hobbyist, there's plenty of YouTube hobbyist channels to pick from. There's more than I can shake a stick at. But a lot of that's just based on emotion. It's just like, oh, isn't this fun? For me, it's based on how can I provide a better service? How can I reduce my cost? How can I help more people? I'm just one employee and I've got the same number of hours in a day as everybody else. And if I'm spending half of that time in the car, I'm losing a lot of money plus the cost of gas, just sitting in the car, going to the client, coming back from the client. Now this doesn't eliminate that because of a bad power supply or something like that, a hard drive crashes. I still have to go out to the client anyway. But that's so rare because again, things have changed. That kind of repair is pretty rare these days compared to what it was 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, where that was a major source of income for me, was just repairing faulty components. But since then, manufacturing's gotten better, a lot better. Component quality's gotten better. Prices have come down. It's been more affordable now. Even with the RAM and SSD prices where they are, it's still more affordable now than it was 10 years ago. You guys are living in a world of luxury, and some of you are complaining that it's not good enough, which I find absurd. But hey, to each their own. But I'm always looking for different kinds of tools. For example, you say, well, Carey, you already have a KVM, so why are you looking at this one? I also have 5 electric screwdrivers. And if you've been watching this channel, you've seen them. Why do I have 5? Because I have to use them to figure out which is one I want in my to-go bag, something smaller and portable, which is one I'm going to use live on camera, or my preference. And how would I know my preference if I didn't have anything to compare it to? Could there be a tool that fits my hand better, that has a better battery life, that has features that I didn't even know were available, like a clutch that auto stops and prevents me from over torquing the screws? Because my first screwdriver didn't have any of that. And the bottom line is, ignorance is bliss. And if somebody would have just introduced me to the product and said, did you know this product exists? That's all I needed. Then I'll go and decide for myself. So that's what I'm trying to do. That's the motivation behind my videos, is I want to show you what I'm interested in. I'm not trying to make you interested in it. I'm not trying to sell it to you. Too many people think they're always being sold. I could care less. I'm just sharing with you the tools and my interests that I have as a professional computer repair, because show me another YouTube channel that does that. I mean, there might be a handful out there, but they're few and far between. And so long as I have a content that isn't common, I'm going to keep making it. And if at some point this becomes, and it never will, but let's just say at some point everybody that's a computer repair person, like Mark Leibowitz or Frank Jimmy, all start their own YouTube channels, then I won't feel the need to do this as much as I do today. So I want you to understand why I'm here. I'm not here for the reasons you are accustomed to. And you need to understand that if I was doing what everybody else was doing, I wouldn't do it. Mark Leibowitz said, Carey, a fractional T1 cost $1,200 a month in downtown Chicago in 1996. Now, do you know how much money $1,200 in 1996 would cost you today? That was 1996 dollars. We've had inflation. So $1,200 in 1996 is approximately twice
about $2,500 to $2,800. If you want to compare what kind of a dent that was in your budget, that would be a reflection of inflation over 30 years. So you think 1,200 is a lot? No, not in today's money. In 1996 money, you're about 2,500 bucks, about twice. Now does it sound expensive? So not very many people had it, and if they did, they were usually businesses, and they may have gotten early VoIP and stuff to get their money's worth out of it and be able to justify turning off the phone lines, stop paying the phone company. I mean, if you want to go back even further, you know, here in the States anyway, you couldn't own a phone. You could only rent your phone. I don't know how many people know that, but you could not go to the store and buy a telephone. You had to rent your telephone, and you had to pay for telephone service. And if you made a long distance call, you had to pay for that, depending on the distance. It was expensive in 1970s and 1980s money, which again, it's at least over 2 times more in today's money if you calculate what that was costing us. So I want you to just take a moment and appreciate how affordable everything's become. Even cell phones back in the early 1980s were solely for rich people. Go watch the movie Greed with Michael Douglas, who was a Wall Street banker, and those were the people who could afford cell phones, and you paid every single time you used it. Every single minute you used it, you paid for each minute. And they weren't as portable, there was no internet. Sometimes they were hardwired into a car, so if you sold the car, it had to be removed. You had to pay for that installation, you had to pay for that removal. It was just for rich people. So everything that used to only be for rich people is a common thing, even for people who are jobless, and they get basically they can get it free from the government, or they were able to, I don't know. That's my understanding, that it's considered a lifeline, that people under certain incomes can get it provided by the government, or they used to. Again, I don't know, but that's a long way from 1984 on cell phones alone. Mark Leibowitz said, when we moved in 1980, my dad was thrilled to be able to buy and install his own phones in the new house. Where we lived before, we still had to rent our phones from the telephone company. Yeah, we all did. Yeah, and they were expensive. So, just a reminder, you know, the world was a lot more expensive, and a lot of things were only for wealthy people that we all most of us take for granted today, as though we are entitled to it. So I think it's important to remember it wasn't that long ago that you would have been driving around in a Lamborghini when everybody else had Fords and Chevys. And today we all have Lamborghinis, and it's not a big deal. And it's easy to forget that once was exclusive only to the wealthy. Well, the same is true with broadband, and the same is true with Wi-Fi. As a result, the home computer, and the reason why people had them, has sort of, at least on the consumer side, for the average consumer, lost any value, because the things they wanted the computer to do was to consume. They're not creating anything. And tablets and phones, or the apps on your TV, those are all consuming devices. You are a consumer. But what are you consuming? Somebody had to make that. Those are the creators. And the creators need more power. They need computers. Very few authors are writing their novel on a tablet or a cell phone. It's just far more complicated. That's not to say nobody does it, it's just not very common. You're much better off having a full-size keyboard, a full-size screen, and most authors would prefer that. It's better than a typewriter, and it's better than typing with your thumbs or looking at a screen this big. Even if you attached a Bluetooth keyboard, it's still too small of a screen. So if you're reading the book, you can read it on a Kindle, you can read it on your phone. But if you're writing the book, creating that on a Kindle isn't possible. It's a consumer device. So there's no reason for a consumer to buy a creation device unless they're using it for some kind of creation. Otherwise, it's fully understandable and predicted that consumers would lose interest in the creation device and just buy the consuming device. And as a creator, I'm okay with that. I don't need more creators to compete with. So whether I'm creating videos or I'm creating software, I'm creating a website, I'm creating a product to sell, I'm not buying my own product, I'm selling it. And if you are a consumer, you're buying it. If you're a consumer, you're not making anything to sell. You're not bringing money in that way. You're spending money out, or you're watching something for free, which is being paid for by collecting data on you, which, you know, it's just there for marketing reasons. Nobody's putting together a private detective to find something you're doing illegally and then hold you accountable and take you to court or get the government involved. Unless you actually are and you draw attention to yourself, nobody is specifically looking for that. They're just looking for more ways to get money out of you because you're a consumer. All right, so anyway, let me just look in the chat one more time. Frank Jimmy said, all through the 90s, my parents still had a black rotary phone hanging on the kitchen wall that they rented from the phone company. Now, if you think about how much that monthly rent was for that phone, not the service, just the rental of to have the phone. You were never allowed to own it. It was never available for sale. And at whatever the rental price was per month times how many months before they finally got rid of it, what does that add up to? And then what is that in today's money? It's probably somewhere around $6,000 if I had to guess. And today, you own your phone, you don't pay for your minutes, you send all the texts you want, you've got data plans with the internet, you can browse the web. You know, if you're a consumer, why would you have a computer? And it's all for, you know, $35 a month or whatever. So anyway, let's see. Back in my day, it was a nickel. Yeah, but a nickel today is $1.50. Rick Lakes joins us and says hello from Minnesota. Roger Myrid says hello. Myrid? Big Game James is joining us as well. Welcome in, everybody. Good to see everyone. Mr. BCA says, what do I think about software KVMs? I've never used one. I've never had it. Basically, you could use a software KVM solution if you've got two computers in the same building. I'm not aware of a software KVM solution that works over the internet. And furthermore, when we talk about KVMs, the biggest difference between remote software and a software KVM is that software like TeamViewer or other remote software require the software installed on both sides. And that can connect over the internet. If you have a software KVM, not a remote software, but a software KVM, that usually works on your local area network, which under certain circumstances, if you had two computers, you would get like a hardware switch. So you had one keyboard, one mouse, and one monitor, and you wanted to switch between the two computers. They're usually like side by side in most cases that I've seen it. You could do that through software now, but that doesn't help you when you want to connect from another location, you know, outside of the building, to the best of my knowledge. And then we've got hardware KVMs, and the benefit of this hardware, what's called an IP or Internet Protocol KVM, is it doesn't require any software and it doesn't require Windows. It doesn't matter what the computer is. I can get into the BIOS, I can reinstall Windows remotely, I can reboot the computer as though I'm sitting right in front of it and have control with my keyboard and my mouse and see that computer's monitor no differently. You know, if that computer's booting and it's showing me the boot logo, that is going to show me the boot logo no differently. This replaces a computer monitor. So That's the biggest difference. So if you never have any need to be outside of Windows to have control, to go into a BIOS, or if you have no need to be able to get into a certain operating system beyond Windows, where you have to find compatible software, then you probably would have no need for something like this. In that case, you're just better off using software. If everything you're doing is within Windows, you can get some free remote software. You don't even have to pay for it. There's like RustDesk is free. You can use that. UltraViewer's free. There's a lot of free alternatives out there. And this isn't for you, if that's the case. But I can update a BIOS. I can boot a memtest ISO image from the remote machine and watch it do the memory test outside of Windows. And when it's done, I can restart the computer. I can update the BIOS. I can change the BIOS. I can change the boot order as if I'm sitting right in front of it. And if you don't have that need, this isn't going to probably provide you with much. But, or at least not much else than what software would run. But that's your big difference between those three, between software KVM, remote software, and remote hardware. And again, with remote hardware, we have the option of the ATX board. So if we're connected to a desktop computer, not a mini PC or a laptop, where you can open it up and physically, you know, you've got your power switch and reset switch that you plug in. You plug this into those, and then you can remotely push the power button and reset button through this. It sends the signal to this, and then this virtualizes you pushing the power button or reset button as if you were sitting in front of it. It's pretty amazing. There's no piece of software you can do that with. Okay, so with that, just looking through the chat for any other questions. Let's do our unboxing. I've been waiting for this. I am super excited. I'm so curious how different or how similar this is to the JetKVM. So I'm going to set this aside for right now. Let's move this over. Let me get ready here. This is a big moment. This is the computer we're streaming from, and this is the computer we're going to remote into. You can see the power light is off. It's not turned on because I'm going to plug this into here and then connect to this from here. That's why you're only going to see one keyboard and one mouse. Normally, I would have two keyboards, one for each computer. But with this, this is emulating what if this was somewhere else, and show you how it works. Here we go. Let's, now I want to do this. Arc KVM, first time unboxing. Let me go to a close-up camera, and we have a nice little thank you card. Thank you for choosing Arc KVM. There's your user manual and your getting started manual links right there, and a quick start guide on the back. Looking inside, this looks quite a bit larger, as I recall, than a JetKVM. So it may not be an exact clone, but let's take a look. Let me compare them. So here's the Arc KVM. And if you're like, what does he keep referring to a JetKVM? What's that? This is a JetKVM. They look similar, don't they? And this is still shrink wrapped in the box, so I'm kind of curious. We unbox one and unbox the other and see just where the differences are, if there are any. But that already looks, that looks quite a bit wider to me. This is going to bug me now. Hold on, let me just grab one I've got out of the box, because I want to say the JetKVM is super tiny. Oh yeah, so this is not the exact clone. People online were making it out to be, because look, let's go back to close-up camera. That's the Arc right here, and this is the Jet. You guys can see that, right? So while they do appear to be very similar, there's a significant size difference between them. And I also think that means this has a bigger, more readable screen. So that's interesting because the ports on the back look identical. If you compare the back of this one to the back of that one. This is the Arc, this is the Jet. So that's interesting. It's not good or bad. It's just, you know, I'm taking something as a point of reference because otherwise, what am I comparing it to? All happiness or unhappiness is caused by comparison. All right, back to the box. So that's our KVM. And then we've got probably cables in this box right here. There is a little indentation that you could put a finger in and help lift that out. Let's see what's in here. All right, we have a USB-C splitter. That's so you can provide power like from a cell phone charger. As I mentioned, if you shut the computer off, you could wake it up with Wake on LAN, assuming you had that feature. Most computers do. But some computers cut power to the USB, and if they do that, you won't have access to this. Think of this as a whole computer all by itself, because that's really what it is. And if it loses power, you can't connect to it anymore. Just like if you turn your computer off, it's going to be really hard for you to use it until you turn it back on again, right? So this is a way that you can share the keyboard and mouse with the computer on one, and then provide it power from the wall. Should you have an older computer that's more limited, that would shut USB power off. I never use those. I don't need them, but you might. This is an HDMI cable. They've got little dust jackets on them. Again, I don't know why they do that, but it's pretty standard in the industry. And what I like about these cables they're including is they're short and they are thin. The thicker the cable is, the more inflexible it is, and it can be a pain in the butt. If the cable, when you move the cable, if the cable is moving the device, it's easy for things to start falling off the table. But we're probably looking at around, I don't know, an 18-inch cable, something like that, I would guess. HDMI full size on both sides. That's another difference. The JetKVM, which is, where did I put it? One of the reasons they made it smaller, or they were able to, is that is a mini HDMI. So the included cable would be full-size HDMI here, right here, and then mini HDMI here. Now, if there was a complaint I had about the JetKVM, these cables are not just laying around in my world the way HDMI. I have got HDMI cables coming out of my ears practically, but not HDMI to mini. In fact, the only reason I even have any to begin with is because my cameras that I use for broadcasting use them. But other than that, I still have few and far between compared to standard HDMIs. And yes, you can buy an adapter and just leave the adapter on. But again, you know, it's adding a complexity and a condition that no other KVM has other than the JetKVM. So I'm happy to see a full-size HDMI. And then we've got just a USB-C to USB-A. That's pretty typical. And what that means is that you can plug the USB-C part of this back here, right? And you take either side of the HDMI and plug it back here. And now you're good to go for any laptop, desktop, mini PC. You could even plug this into your television. If your TV has a HDMI output, most TVs don't. But if you had a TV that had HDMI out, let's say your cable box, that'd be a better example. If your cable box doesn't have a USB, just plug this into a cell phone charger. You don't need a keyboard and mouse for your cable box. And then you could output the cable box right into this device, which it would then show you what's on TV. You wouldn't be able to change the channel, but this is literally a monitor. That's what it's acting as. So whether it's plugged into a computer or anything with HDMI out, a video game, it outputs to this as a screen, which then appears in your browser as though you're right there. So the possibilities are endless. We have some packaging here that we need to remove. You see there's vent holes, which interestingly, although smaller, the JetKVM also has a similar design with the venting holes there, which is an interesting, despite their size difference, there's a lot of similarity there. So we'll just find some part of this here we can peel off. And then there's also film to protect the screen. And I do believe that's a touch screen, although it's just for information. It's not like you're going to change any settings on there that I can imagine. Okay, and that's it. That's all we have. So let's get this set aside. I'll put it up here just to remind you what we're working on, or for people just tuning in, wondering what the heck we're doing. And let's try it out. So traditionally, and without reading any documentation, the way you would use one of these is plug and play. So let's plug and let's play. We've got two cables, HDMI, which I'll plug in back here, and USB. The only other two cables I need to give this power. And I do not have this connected to Wi-Fi, so I need to have an Ethernet cable plugged into it. This has to have an Ethernet cable too. This is its own computer. This is its own computer. Don't confuse that. I know this doesn't look like a computer. This is a computer. And so it needs its own internet access. So once I connect to this, if I take this internet access off of this one and put it on here, it will connect me. I will see it, but I won't be able to do anything online since this doesn't have internet access. So again, whether it's Wi-Fi on this side, doesn't matter. But on this side, it has to be a wired connection. So I have a second cable down here on the floor. Let me find it. Here it is. And if you look on the back, you'll notice we have two very similar looking ports. One is wider than the other one. The one facing down is actually an RJ11, like a telephone style connection. It's a serial connection that would go to the ATX control board, which is what's in this box over here that I don't use, but we'll talk about that. The other one, where the clip is facing up, that's the only place this is going to fit. An RJ45 is wider, and RJ11 is much narrower. So this cannot go in the wrong port. None of these cables will fit other than in the place. There's one place they fit. So if you've got it plugged in, then you plugged it in correctly. Now, oh, I suppose I could get rid of that. Let's turn the unit on. So we have a power button up here. We should get power. Yep. And then we should see this power on since it's getting power from the USB cable. We should see this light up. And this is booting, and this is booting. And when this boots, it'll connect to the router, and it'll display an IP address on the screen. And we're going to open our browser and type that IP address in here on the local area network. People on the internet cannot get to this yet. We'd have to configure that, and we'll get to that later. But just for here in the building to get it working, it's already booted up and it's already got an IP address. Let me turn this around and look at it because you guys frankly can see it better than I can. And it looks like the screen does time out. So you just tap it to wake it back up again. That prevents screen burn-in. And does it do anything? It may not be a touch screen, or, oh yeah, it is a touch screen. And the options are settings, display, about. That's probably going to tell us our firmware version. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of updates. I don't know what that last one says. Press and hold to reboot. Oh, okay. So again, this would only be useful to you if you were in the room with it. I don't know who this is for. I think people like lights. You know, I've seen people want to put these in server racks and they all have the displays on it. It looks real fancy, but nobody's looking at them, because if you were there looking at it, you wouldn't need this. You'd be there. You could use the keyboard and mouse while you're there. But okay, so to get it set up, though, it does help. So this one says our IP address is 192.168.68.71. That's a non-routable IP address. I can tell that to the whole world. You can't get on it. It's not, technically, there's no possible way you'd have to break into the house. And if you're here, you could just take the computer. You wouldn't need to remote into it. There's a difference between, you know, traditional theft and hacking. So at that point, it's still 100% locked in, because you'd have to be in the building at this point. Let me open a new browser tab and let me share that with you. So we're going to go over to this computer, the streaming computer. We're going to use this keyboard and this mouse that we use here to see and control this. And we're going to do this without any software. Let's see if it works. So let me start up my window capture, and we'll go up here and we'll type in that IP address, 192.168, and then what was it? 71 was the last two digits, 71. Hit enter. And in theory, we should get a login page. Now it says the site can't be reached. Let's reload that. Refuse to connect, that's a new one. Let me just make sure I haven't typed anything incorrectly. 192.168.68.71. That looks right. I'm going to try it in Microsoft Edge. Let me open Edge, and let me share Edge with you to see if it's a browser-related problem here. So let's go back to sharing Edge with you. Here we go. And we'll try the same thing just to make sure it's not a browser-related problem. 68.71. Oh, that's better. So I think it's something to do with the way I've got Chrome configured, or maybe one of the browser plugins. I'm not sure, but for right now, that is your welcome page. I'll let you read that screen. And the first thing it wants us to do is set this up, which would involve setting a password and certain preferences. So we'll click Set up your Arc KVM. Now, this is exactly the same as the JetKVM software. And one of the things I love about the JetKVM software, which is open source and is also used by PiKVM, they're using the same foundation, but what they're building on, think of it like a Linux distro. There's all these different versions of Linux. They're all kind of using the same kernel, but how they build it out is up to them. So I want you to think of this as the JetKVM kernel is open source. It's not stolen. They're welcome to use it. And so PiKVM uses it, and Arc KVM apparently is using it. And one of the things I love about the JetKVM software is this option that says no password. Because in order for you to set this up over an internet connection, which is optional, you would already have to have a password connection through some kind of VPN. Then on top of that, you could have a login screen on the computer, which would require a password. So then once you go to log into the computer, it requires a third password. I mean, for some people, they'd have 12 passwords layered on top of each other. Me personally, I think 2 is plenty, but to each their own. And since I'm primarily using this locally, I'm not setting this one up right now anyway. For anything other than local use, you'd have to be in this building regardless of this setting. So proceed with risk. So if I do it this way, it says continue in blue. And if I choose to, there's no risk on a secured LAN. That's silliness. But if you don't know any better, I guess. But you can always change this again. So it's not like it's a one-way thing. You know, you can go back and change your mind. Okay, do you want to enable sound playback to play audio from the remote computer? I don't. So I'll say set up later. And again, you can change your mind regardless. Microphone emulation. Do you want to enable microphone emulation? I do not, but these are questions I never got on a JetKVM before, or a PiKVM. This is all new. This is their part of Arc KVM's customizing the software. This is how you know, here's where all the originality is coming from and where the differences are. I'll set this up later, which means never. Do I want to enable a virtual USB drive for two-way file transfer? Oh yeah, that's like also making it a flash drive. Yes, yes. Automatically install software updates. Yes, absolutely. Okay, welcome to the Arc KVM. Experience the next generation way of using a computer remotely. That's what the screen looks like. The green symbols are acknowledging that USB is plugged in and HDMI is detected. The MAC address here, I don't know why I would need that, but just in case you do, there it is. We'll hit get started. It says the device has been set up completely. The Arc KVM device is connected, and now, that's pretty good lag time. You'll see the round cursor is me, and the arrow cursor is the remote machine responding to my mouse input. So there is a slight delay, but it's pretty good. Pretty darn good. Along the left side, we have a bunch of options here. Virtual media. This is where you can load ISO images for like MemTest or Windows 11 reinstalls and have it emulate as though you plugged in a USB drive of installation media. What do we have? Virtual USB. That's what I'm more interested in, is the ability to copy all my utilities over to this. I don't know how much space we've got, but you would upload files like my utilities, my optimizer, right into here, and then it's like having my utilities flash drive attached at all times. I like that, and the JetKVM doesn't do that. That's another shortcoming of the JetKVM, is the fact that there's no way to have a virtual flash drive. It only works as an ISO mounting, and that's it, which is disappointing. Now, they could change that with a software update, but I don't see any indication that they will. Wake on LAN enables you to send what's called a magic packet to the computer remotely if it were powered off. You could power it on that way without using an ATX control board. So if it were a laptop or a mini PC or simply a computer without the ATX board, you would enable Wake on LAN in that computer's BIOS. And most computers these days, within the last 10 years, you have to turn that on in the BIOS, but it's usually there. People don't know what it is, and they usually don't care, but you could have features in your computer you don't know about. If you have any problems with using your keyboard, you can always default to an on-screen keyboard, especially like, what if I want to hit print screen? How do I know if I'm print screening the local machine or the remote machine? So I can be sure that I'm sending the print screen command to the remote by using the virtual keyboard's print screen button. That would be an example. Again, that's a pretty common feature found in most modern KVMs. Now, what I can't do is I can't copy and paste from my machine to this machine. So if I wanted to open up, let's open up Notepad on the remote machine. And I want to copy a command. I don't want to have to type it in. What I have to do is copy it as the copying part's the same. So let's say, for example, I've got a PowerShell command, and I highlight it and I copy it on my local machine. I don't come in here and hit paste. Instead, I have to go over here and then paste it here on my local machine in the local browser. And then I send what I've pasted, and it will type out on the remote machine really fast. So that's also pretty universal on KVMs. With a software remote, that's different, but that requires software on both sides. I want to remind you, we're only in a browser. We've installed no software on either machine. So this functions more as a website. Don't confuse that with a piece of software. Websites are not software. We have a connection status here that tells us details of the stream for technical people looking to diagnose, or I don't know, just interested in those specifications. ATX power board, that's the board they sent me that you can physically turn the machine off or reset it. Again, I don't use it, but that's how I could physically turn the machine off that I'm connected to remotely. regardless if I'm on the local area network or I've set it up over the internet and the computer's located half a world away. And then we've got settings. So right here, this check for updates. This is an important thing to consider. You are looking at the earliest version of the app and the earliest version of the operating system that you are likely ever going to see. Those numbers are only going to get bigger from here on out. And these updates are critical when it comes to making sure the features are working well, they are secure, and new features are added. You can manually still check, but yes, we have the current version. I don't know how often they're going to be updating this. Usually, when a product is just released, the updates come in fast and furious for the first 6 months. That's what you hope to see. I don't know how quickly or how commonly this company is going to release updates, but they still have some work to do. But the general functionality of working as a KVM seems just fine. So under our general settings, you also see we have mouse settings, and we have a lot of different options here, including a mouse jiggler to prevent the remote computer from going to sleep. The keyboard layout if you wanted to choose a different language. Video stream quality, color, and the ED/ID of the display. If for some reason it's not displaying correctly, you can adjust it. Usually the Arc KVM default or any KVM default is typically what you want, but on an earlier version of software, there may be some older hardware that was never tested that you would want to go in here and manually set that up. However, that is something also that gets improved. So you might need to set it up now, but in 6 months, back to the default. You know, that's one of those things that just gets improved as they get more information and how people are using it. Under the audio tab, playback, stream quality, microphone emulation. It does say that's in beta and playback's in beta, so they're still working on it. This is where you could turn that on or off. Remember, I selected off during the setup and it said you could change it later. Here's where you change it. The device itself, you can control display orientation. This is referring to the screen on the front of the device, not on the monitor. This is the LED screen. So if you find the LED screen is a little too bright, we can make that lower brightness. We can tell it to dim the display. So I don't mind that. We could set it to bright, but let's pick the middle. We'll say medium, and then say dim it after 5 minutes. And then after 30 minutes, just shut the display off because clearly no one's looking at it, right? And then you would tap that screen to make it come back on again. Virtual USB drive, remember it said we can turn this on or turn it off. This drive uses FAT32. Reformatting it may prevent it from mounting again, so it's already ready to go. I guess that's what actually, no, this is Notepad. Sorry, is that the virtual drive? If I click on my computer, do I see the virtual drive? Well, it's showing it as a read-only drive, not as a writable flash drive. So I need to see what setting we're missing there. Let's see what else. Access. Okay, so I'm in local access. I'm on a secured local area network. We can also use HTTPS for the web browsing mode of it. Authentication is where we would set the password if we change our mind and we want to set a password or turn the password off. With regards to remote, it appears Arc KVM has their own cloud service. I am impressed because I didn't think they would. And this is one of the strengths the JetKVM has, is instead of using Tailscale, which is free and very secure, it requires a little more technical knowledge. With the JetKVM cloud, you just create a free account on JetKVM and you bind your account to the MAC address of this KVM. And then from that point forward, when you log in, it'll show you all your KVMs. In our case, we just have one. And then you can connect to it from anywhere in the world, and it's completely encrypted and secured. And that's a service provided by Arc KVM. If we drop down, you see it says custom. So I suppose you could potentially put Tailscale in here. I don't know yet. Normally there would be a specific Tailscale ability to add the app or to install that app. So I don't know if you can just do it through an API and app URL. That's beyond my knowledge. But I would just use the Arc KVM cloud because the JetKVM cloud works so well. All streams are encrypted in transit. It's OpenID Connect, zero trust security model. And it's all open source software, so you can inspect to make sure that you're not sending your data or being spied on. You know, everybody's concerned about the Chinese government here in America, but everything we buy that's electronic, and a lot of things we buy that aren't electronic, are made in China. There is no KVM and there is no router that I'm aware of that are made in the United States. So just so you know, this isn't any different than anything else in that matter, but if you're skeptical, you can look through the code. It's not yet published, but it will be soon. Same with JetKVM. It's exactly the same timeline. MAC address information. Host name is Arc KVM. That's a great name. That means that if we don't want to use the IP address to connect to this, we could just type ArkKVM.local into the browser and it'll find it when it's local. Otherwise, we would use the cloud, which is probably something like app.arkkvm.com. And then you'd log in with your account, name and password, and you'd probably have some kind of two-factor on that, I imagine. And I mean, I don't know how much more security you could want, and that's all included in the price. You're not paying extra, no subscription, doesn't expire. You got DHCP lease information. IP version 6, I think that's mostly for corporations, people that have a ton of electronic devices connected to the internet, phones and all kinds of stuff that most home users don't need that. Not at this time. Once you're on your own router, then IPv4 is all you need, unless you have more than 255 devices. And if you do, boy, oh boy, you must have a lot more money and space than me. Under advanced, there's a web terminal. So if you want to get into the guts of this and work at a code level, you don't have to, it's not that complicated, although that action in and of itself is pretty technical. But if you're more the developer type, you can turn on the web terminal. There's something called loopback only mode, which is restricting the web access only to the local machine at 127.0.0.1. Again, that's mostly for diagnostic and testing. SSH access. And of course, you can reset the whole thing here. Down here, anytime we press a key on the keyboard, it tells us what key we're pressing and transmitting if you're curious if it's going through. And our caps lock button, num lock button, and scroll lock button that are on the keyboard are here on that lower bar. If you want to go full screen, if you're like, well, I can still tell I'm in a browser. I thought you said this thing would look like the monitor. If I hit this button right up here, we are now, believe it or not, we're still in the browser. And check this out. If I restart this computer while I'm full screen, you're going to think, or if this was the streaming computer I was restarting, I'm going to lose my connection right now. But we're connected to the remote machine. This is where it can get confusing. And you're going to see the Minis Forum logo come up no differently than if you were sitting right in front of this computer using it directly, even though we're connected remotely. So just give that a minute. And if the machine, yeah, there we go. There's your post screen, just like you were sitting in front of the computer. I want to remind you, if we go up to the very top, you'll see this X. That'll put us back in the browser again. And there we go, full screen. Show me your software do that. It's not possible. You have to do this with remote hardware only. Come on, how cool is that? One of the ways I know I'm on the remote machine is the double cursor, right? The little round dot is me, and the arrow that follows is the remote machine. When I'm on my local machine, I only have one cursor. That helps clear out any confusion. This works really, really well. I am really impressed with it. I've got to figure out, how do I make the flash drive part of it work? Because when I click on my computer, I've got a CD drive. So that's where you would mount ISO images, which I don't want. Well, not right now anyway. So my curiosity now is, how do I activate the flash drive functionality? Let's go to device. It's not it. Virtual USB. Present a writable USB drive. So a CD-ROM is not writable, is it? I mean, there are writable CDs, but you don't just copy, drag and drop. Let's see what happens if we drag and drop something. Let's grab a file. We'll copy it. Let's go to the CD drive, which should be read-only. Let's see what happens. Oh, it's empty. So that's mounting a virtual image, and we don't have any virtual images mounted, so it looks like the CD drive is empty. So that's functioning exactly the way I expect it to. So let's go back under settings, and let's see. Is it one or the other? Is that my problem? General, mouse, device. Where was it? Is it here? Virtual drive. Oh, Arc KVM USB drive. Mount to remote. What does that do? Mounted successfully. Okay. Now, do I have an E? Oh, there it is. Now I should be able to paste. And now it's working like a flash drive. So now my curiosity is how much space is on here. Let's go to properties and see. We have about a 16 gig USB flash drive. That's included for free. It's actually 15.9, which is the exact size of my utilities flash drive. So you've got two different drives here, one for as a USB flash drive and one that virtualizes putting in CDs and DVDs. That's, I guess it wouldn't virtualize a DVD because you'd need 9 gigs, but yeah, it's got the space for it. But I imagine this is a shared space. So if I'm also mounting an ISO image, and let's say it's Windows 11, that's going to be an 11 gig image. This is just USB 2 as far as I know. So moving 11 gigs onto this is going to take a while at USB 2 speeds. But once it's on there until you remove it. And then you can use it as many times as you want. But on all the KVMs, moving the data to the flash drive or the ISO images onto them, they're all USB 2 as far as I know. And USB 2 transfer speeds are very slow. So something you want to prep ahead of time if you want it to be ready when you're ready to use it. Otherwise, it could take, a good 10, 15 minutes to copy an ISO of like Windows 11 on there. But again, once you put it on there, it'll read back a lot faster. But nonetheless, I was worried this wasn't going to be as polished as it is. It's still not done. It's still a prototype, but that's a damn good prototype. Congrats to the engineers and the folks over at Arc KVM. They've done a fantastic job. This is much further along than they sort of, I don't know, maybe they painted a worst case scenario for me, but what does this button do? Oh, okay, that just opens up this menu down here. Perfect. Let me get back over to the chat room, so bear with me here for a second. And what questions or concerns do you have about this device or one like it? I would be curious to know. And let me go back and see if anybody has already asked. Is this getting hot? No, it's barely even lukewarm. The Nano KVM Pro gets really, really hot. It doesn't hurt anything, it's just, I'm not used to it. This is basically room temperature, so it's staying nice and cool. Ophelia says hello and joins us in the chat room. Welcome in. ACS Drafting joins us. Welcome in. I believe that's Aaron. Aaron. I'm still scrolling through your chats to see if I missed any questions. If you have a question, I haven't seen it, please repost it to the chat now while I'm paying attention to the chat. The greeting said, yeah, Carey has 5 electric screwdrivers, but don't ask him how many computer he has. But that's the thing, though, with computers, I'm not usually using them on my own. If you have any idea of the literally tens of thousands of computers I've worked on since 1991 professionally, before that for fun, but professionally, it's tens of thousands. And in 1991, I started with an electric screwdriver that the company I worked for provided to me to do my job, a Milwaukee stick driver that is essentially the same driver I use today that's been updated by Milwaukee. It's pretty damn close to the original, but instead of nickel metal hydride batteries, they're using lithium. The battery's a lot better. And they sort of ergonomically improved the stick. It's the same company, same driver. And I used that NiCad, that red screwdriver. Oh gosh, has it been 20 years before I replaced it? They were still making and selling the same electric screwdriver, Milwaukee was, for 20 years with no improvements and no changes. That's how you know you got a job done right. And if there was one complaint, it was that if the screwdriver sat for a week, the battery would be dead. And that's just the problem with NiCad batteries. But with the lithium ion, this driver could sit in the drawer for months, and I charge it like 4 times a year, 3 times a year. I also don't use it as often as I used to, but I think the RPM speeds are the same, the clutch settings are the same, everything's the same, but they improved ergonomically. It's not just a stick anymore. It's a little more oblong, better to fit in the hand. And they changed the battery technology out the lithium ion, and that's the only change they've made in, what's it been, 35 years? I'm telling you, since I got one in 1991. So I don't know when Milwaukee introduced that screwdriver, but I was introduced to it in 1991. Other screwdrivers, within a matter of a couple of years, like the Panasonic, you don't see it for sale anymore. They come and go. The DeWalt one, where you have to twist your wrist, it doesn't have forward or backward buttons. It's motioned it. Throw that in the trash. I don't know who that's for. And then DeWalt has those big industrial ones that are used for driving screws into the frame of a house. You don't want to use those. That's like using an impact drill. You could, you shouldn't. So yeah, me and my screwdrivers, you find a good tool that really makes your job a lot easier, but it's easy to become emotionally attached to it because it's saving me so much work and so much concern over stripping out threads, over tightening, or ripping the head off the screw or stripping the screw out. So you find something that works that well, good luck taking it from me. And I've got a backup just in case anything happens, and they have a 5-year warranty. So what more did you want? They're not cheap, about $165 compared to a $25 Black & Decker. But you can go to McDonald's and get a burger, or you can go to a steakhouse. It's going to cost you different, and I don't know that you can really fairly compare them. So to each their own in that regard. Dustin Fuller says hello. And there's John Williams. So let's take a look. I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm going to move on with the ATX board. This is sold separately. And again, I personally don't have any use for it, but I don't know what you might use it for. So if we open up this box, which is just a plain cardboard box, what we've got in here, let's go back over to close-up camera. We've got both a low-profile PCI slot and a normal size PCI slot. We've got what looks like a telephone or RJ11 cable here. That's a serial cable. we have the wiring to connect up to your power switch and your reset switch, your power LED and your hard drive LED on your motherboard on this side, and then onto the ATX board with this side. It's all pretty obvious. We have a USB cable. What would you use this for? I guess you could, because this doesn't need to have any power. Well, I mean, just to be clear, this is a serial cable, and the S in USB stands for serial. So you must use one or the other, would be my guess. We can look at the documentation here in a minute, but my guess is that you would then use this to plug one side into the control board and the other side into the keyboard and mouse, but that means now you have no way to provide external power over here should you need it. That's a little confusing, so you'd have to kind of give up one for the other, I'm guessing. And then finally in the box is the ATX control board, which is pretty darn large. If we look at like the nano KVM control board, it's like this big. So I don't know why they made it this big, other than maybe they thought it would be easier to use if it wasn't so tiny for those of us with larger hands. So there's the control board, and the idea here yeah, I don't know, maybe this does need some power to it. I don't know. But the idea here is you would take this connector, right, and you would plug it in here. Now, my first concern right out of the gate is, does it go on this way, or does it turn around the other and go on this way? There doesn't seem to be a pin block. Oh, no, wait a minute. Wait. I got that completely wrong. I've got that completely wrong. There's 2 rows of pins here. Okay, so as far as intuition goes, I am stuck. We have 2 rows of pins, but only 1 row of pins here. Okay, we could use a little more clarity. It would help if this only plugged in one place, in one direction only. And that's a very easy thing to key that. However, and then what you would do is there's some screws, and you would attach this slot cover to this, and that way you mount it into your board. But it doesn't actually attach to your motherboard. It's just there to give it some support, so you're not just having it sit on your case or something like that where it could short out. So I'm okay with that. I'm just concerned about, there's only one connector on here, and I'm just not sure why there's 2 rows of pins and only 1 row of pins here. These things don't seem to be compatible. I can't imagine what the other row of pins are for. Let me get out my thicker glasses, my cheaters, so I can read the fine print. I really like things to be intuitive, especially if you're already a technical person. They should follow standards, but they've done something different here. So what do we have? It says button reset, button reset, button power, hard drive LED, positive and negative, power LED, positive and negative. Thinking. The gears are turning. Hold on. I really love figuring this out on my own. I know I can read the documentation. What is this for? If this isn't what I think it is, so what it looks like is you'll take the existing, maybe I can demonstrate this Because I know what you're thinking. You're like, all right, so here's a power switch, right? And let's say this is plugged into your motherboard. If this needs to plug into the motherboard, then what happens to your power switch? Does it no longer work? That's up to you. So you could take your power switch that used to plug into your motherboard, and in this case, we've got a power switch and an LED on this. All right, so we have power LED, positive and negative, and the power switch. And then we would plug that into it's not differentiating to me what row does what, or if they're just duplications for some reason. Maybe it doesn't matter what row. But it appears these go on horizontally. They're not connecting two rows together here. So if we follow this, it says the power switch goes here, and the power LED with the positive side goes next to it. Let's think this through logically. So now what we've done is we've taken the power switch and the power LED. I just kind of made this harder on myself. Let me put the positive one in first, and then the negative one on. Okay, and then let me give you a close-up on camera 2. And I think both rows are the same, and it doesn't matter which one you use. Like it's irrelevant. You say, okay, so now our power switch and LED on our case is, instead of being plugged into the motherboard, it's plugged into this board. So now how do we get it from this board back over to where this used to be plugged in on the motherboard? And I guess it would make sense that that's where this cable comes in. And it appears that it doesn't matter, again, if you use the top row for the case buttons or the bottom row for the case buttons, since they're both connected together regardless. That's my guess. And so this cable here breaks out all these connections so they fit on each individual motherboards. And they're all, ooh, they're not labeled. Oh, that's not good. How do I know? Hard drive LED. Let's just say we need 2 cables for the hard drive LED. We need 2 cables for the power LED. We need 2 cables for the reset switch, and we need 2 cables for the power switch, and nothing's labeled. I have no idea what these are. And if we look at this, it doesn't tell us which is which on here either. So I have no idea, does this then go on the free row in this direction, or does it go on the free row in this direction? Now, traditionally, where you see these connectors, that's usually the part that faces down, but there's no rule that's enforced that says they have to do it that way. Isn't that interesting? Okay, so that would be my guess. So let's say, because these aren't labeled, then in theory, it would work either way. And you say, well, how does that make sense? Well, because here on the circuit board, if you look really, really close, and I'm probably going to have to bring this up to the camera for you guys to see the detail. They've given you 4 different ways to do this, essentially. So whatever color wires are alongside here where it says button reset, then those wires right here, see how they align with what the text says? That's your reset. But if I turn this around the other way and flip it, so I put it on like this, then where it says reset and you follow that across to the straight through wire, then it's going to be these 2 wires. So it looks like the reason they didn't label these is you could flip it and do it any way you want, and you're going to be told, based on what it says here, what color of wires to use for which connector. And each connector has 2 wires, a positive and a negative. And because these are also wired straight through, it wouldn't matter if we put these on the top See how there's 2 rows of pins? And so for power and the LED, we'll skip that first one, that's reset. And now we put that on the top instead of the bottom, and then this one can go on the bottom. It's all pass-throughs, so it doesn't, that makes sense. The question is, why do we have both USB and RJ11? Are they both needed, or is it just one or the other? That's my final question. And for that, probably best to look in the documentation. So all of that makes very logical sense to me. I get it. Unless I'm wrong. But I just can't imagine anything other than common sense here. I'm not wired to think any other way. So let's pull up the documentation and let's look at that together. Hey, cat, stop scratching. Thank you. I'd like to keep that wall for later. All right. Yeah, there's a cat in the studio. Let's get rid of that. Now, in the links below the video, in the video description, there is a link to the documentation. Let's go look at it together right now. That should do it. So ArkKVM.com/docs if you just want to type it in. And along the left side, we have our table of contents. And the ATX power control board is right here. What it does and how it works, it includes USB-C input for an optional 5-volt power supply. Why would that be needed? It can also receive 5 volts through a pin header. It can? It supports powering. It supports powering the Arc KVM device through the serial cable. That is also used to power it on. But again, we're powered through USB, which we have to have USB anyway to have keyboard and mouse control. So again, I'm not sure who this is for. I'm not sure the scenario in which you would want to power this over Ethernet or power it through the serial cable makes any sense, because you still need the USB cable for keyboard and mouse control, unless the USB port you're using just doesn't have the power delivery, right? That you've plugged it into a USB port that either has 6 other things that are draining power from it, or it's such an old computer that it doesn't deliver the milliamps or the wattage that's needed at a very bare minimum to run this. But man, you know, replace the computer, for crying out loud. What are you doing? Comes with a PCI slot cover bracket. Yep. Each relevant pin provides dual headers, one for the Arc KVM and one for the original. This allows both the Arc KVM and your case buttons to stay connected at the same time. Okay, but they don't show it. Let's go to next. So it says dual header design, but what I think they mean to say, it's more than dual head. It looks like it's not reversible, kind of reversible and interchangeable. But you, as I demonstrated, you can go one direction or the other, and one connector, it could be on the top row, whether that's going to your PC or to the Arc KVM, or it could be on the bottom row. It certainly appears that way. So is that all it's doing? It's got us stuck in a loop here. Not actually moving on to the next thing. Okay. And everything else is just about the features. And if you want to learn more about it, what is it? What's the quick start guide? The power options. The most common way to power is through the USB-C. Many systems provide a constant 5-volt power through USB. However, here we go. In some cases, this feature has to be enabled in the BIOS, often labeled as USB during standby or USB always on. If the device does not automatically power on, please verify that this setting is enabled. What if you don't have that setting? You must have a very old computer. Or you could go power over Ethernet, Okay. USB-C powered data splitter is included, so that's the USB-C Y cable that was in the box. And that's, again, so you would plug that into like a cell phone charger. So what I'm realizing, why I was quiet there for a minute, is that's the sound of me, of a light bulb coming on over my head, that you would never necessarily plug this into this. These two things don't go together. This is meant to plug in here, okay, and to get power from somewhere else. Could be a USB port on the computer itself, just loop it right back. But what this will do then is when you plug the serial cable into here, if you choose to use this, you don't have to. If you plug the serial cable in, which you have to use, okay, if you want to control power, you need to use a serial cable. But optionally, you can choose to have the power to turn this on coming from this too, if you provide the power through this surrogate. This is basically surrogate power delivery. So it's one or the other. In no circumstance, and this is why I'm sort of making this correction, because these are live and unscripted and unrehearsed videos, in no circumstance would there be any justifiable reason to plug this into here. I don't know that it'll hurt anything, but you're wasting it. You don't need it. Pick one or the other. This is specifically used for providing external power if you're just not getting enough power through the USB port. And again, I don't know why you'd use PoE. There must be some very old computers people are using, or people are just so clueless they don't know how to resolve it. And so we just give them extra cables rather than educate them. I have to assume people that use this are not clueless. You're not your typical, I don't know what I'm doing consumer. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm not judging. I'm just saying, who is this made for? Because it doesn't make any sense to dumb it down when you probably wouldn't be buying it otherwise. It's just got to be, you've got some really old equipment, really, really old. Maybe it's a corporation that has a 15-year-old server and they're just too cheap to replace it. And you're like, what am I going to do, Carey? I can't do anything about it. Maybe. Again, I'm stuck using my imagination because I'm having a very hard time coming up with a scenario that makes any sense. Look, I'm all for having options. I think giving people options, you can never go wrong, and everybody can do it their own way. But because 2 people out of 100 want to do it one way, is it worth giving the other 98 people stuff they're never going to use? It opens up this like confusion, like, why is this here? But for those 2 people, I'm sure they appreciate it. Again, maybe there's information that you guys have I don't have where that's more common than I think it is. But I have only used, and the best I can tell you is the JetKVM is as close to this as possible. And JetKVM is plugged into Studio A. And when I want to log into Studio A, this is going to work exactly the same. So rather than go through that whole setup, let me just show you how that works. So Studio A is another building. It's a half an hour from here. So if I bring up my browser, right over here, and we go up here, in the case of the JetKVM is what I'm going to demonstrate because these are very similar. app.jetkvm.com. I'm already logged in, and when I hit the login button, you see I'm using my Google account for this, so I don't even have to create a whole new Google account. And every single JetKVM I have that's plugged in and turned on, or let me rephrase, every JetKVM that I have that I bonded to this account, will appear here. I can scroll up and down as many as I want. I just happen to have just one. And I've also got this set to not ask me for a password, because if I want to connect, first you need a password just to get in here, an account name and a password. Then when I want to connect, the desktop is going to appear. So you see how it says loading video stream and nothing's happening? That's because the video went to sleep. So if I hit enter, that wakes it up. Now there is Studio A's computer, and I have to enter a password to log into it. See what I'm saying? So if we just then have another password, now we're getting 3 passwords deep. For some people, again, they'd go 20 passwords nested into each other. I think it's plenty. But that is, I can access from a cell phone, from a tablet, anything that's internet connected that has a browser, anywhere in the world. I go to app.jetkvm.com, and this is all free. I don't pay anything additional for a subscription. It's encrypted, it's secured. And I imagine the Arc KVM is exactly the same. It's built on the same software, only instead of using Jet's cloud, they're using Arc's cloud. So if Jet goes out of business, probably that cloud goes away. But that's why there's alternative ways to set up Tailscale or Zero Tail or these other, or Zero Tier, I mean, other alternatives that you can use. You can't use a Nano KVM this way. You have to set it up with the Tailscale or another. What I'm saying is IP doesn't provide you a cloud service. You're on your own. So the fact that Arc KVM and JetKVM offer that, if I want to deploy it remotely and access it over the internet, that's so much less complicated. Super easy. Okay, so let me get back over to camera 1 here real quick. And let me get back over to the chat room and see if you guys have any other questions for me. Our friend Buster's saying good night. It is, yeah, quite late there in Scotland. Always good to see you, my friend. I hope you're feeling well. I hope you're doing well. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. And thank you for your friendship and your generosity, and not just to me, but to the whole community. Hope you have a good night and rest easy. Phil Stodd said, if the power LED is hooked up backwards, it won't light up. This is true. I don't know if he's talking to me or not. I don't know if it's a misunderstanding, if I wasn't clear. I wasn't talking about putting the cables on backwards. I was saying the cables can go in the same order on the top row or the bottom row, regardless if the top row is the KVM or if the top row is the motherboard directly. I wasn't implying that you could put the cables on backwards. I was implying you could put the cables on either row from either device and it would work equally the same. Or he's answering somebody's question that I didn't see. So it's pass through for the case buttons. Yes. Yeah, it's completely pass through. That's why both the top row and the bottom row don't matter which one you use. They're essentially in the same circuit, regardless. It doesn't matter. So as long as you've got the positive and negative on the right pins on the top row or on the right pins on the bottom row, doesn't matter. You can use either one for the Arc KVM, and you can use whatever one's remaining to your motherboard and vice versa. That's why they're not specifically labeled, because you have options. It's not. On one hand, I would prefer if you used a specific row and a specific connector went in a specific direction only and locked into place. That's what I'd like to see. On the other hand, this isn't meant for somebody that's not technical. So you're supposed to know this. It's implied that if you didn't know this, you probably wouldn't buy this anyway. There's probably some truth to that. Some people might buy it, and then that's how they learn it. But I think most people will have understood those basics long before they would ever consider purchasing something like this. So there's always going to be exceptions. Still, I don't think there's any downside to oversimplifying, even for technical people. But by doing it this way, they do give you a little bit more sort of, it doesn't matter. As long as you're paying attention and know what you're doing, it doesn't matter. Put the connector on, like this connector here. If we put it on upside down, for example, you can totally do that. It just changes the colors of the wires according to where those wires line up, as I demonstrated. Anybody technical would know that, right? I mean, that's basic stuff. But if you've never worked with electronics before, that's one hell of a place to start. But it would just be so much easier if they made the decision for you and said, this connector goes here, and that connector goes there, and we're labeling these. Me personally, I'm a big fan of simplicity. One might argue this is simpler because it gives you so many options, but giving me options creates a little something called analysis paralysis, where you can have a hard time making up your mind. Sometimes people know too much, and their own knowledge gets in their own way. So, you know, to each their own, but that's just a preference that I have. It's not a, it's nothing more than my own personal preference, for whatever that's worth. Okay, so we're just at the 2-hour mark. And, you know, I probably spent the first hour going through the regular monologue stuff and saying hello. So I think a full hour on this is a pretty in-depth review. I mean, we've covered everything, including the ATX board, which is sold separately. And we've got the links if you want to read the user manual. There's not much in the way of reviews on this yet. Even if you search Reddit, I think there's one thread on this. So it's brand new. Will it gain popularity? Will it forever be, you know, a second or third tier option to other KVMs? That's yet to be determined. I wish nothing but the best to them. This is not a duplicate of the JetKVM. It's very similar, but it's physically larger. It's even put together differently. The JetKVM, you can open it up from the top. There's no screws here. So the entire assembly of this is physically larger, heavier, and the ability to have the virtual USB drive is one of the biggest weaknesses in the JetKVM, along with that mini HDMI cable that they've made better with this. So the fact that they also have their own cloud service, which the Pico KVM doesn't have, and the Pico is just the JetKVM open source software. And it only gets updated about once every 2 months. They're very slow on their development. What they've got is working, but for a few dollars more, you could have something so much better. I would definitely rather have this than the Pico. My question is, would I rather have this than the JetKVM? That's a hard question because, as I mentioned, the JetKVM has had 18 months to polish. Give this 18 months, give it 6 months, and time to revisit. What I might need to do is I might need to deploy this and swap it out for the JetKVM at Studio A and see what it's like to live with. However, I want to wait till I get at least one more update on this before I do, just to ease any security concerns I've got and give them time to get the source code published in the GitHub. So we'll give that time. Once they've done that, I'll feel a lot better about plugging this in over at Studio A and leaving it on 24/7. My plan is to replace the JetKVM with this strictly because of that USB flash drive. If between now and then JetKVM introduces the USB flash drive and JetKVM has enough spare space to make that usable for me, which I don't know that it does, ooh, boy, I'm going to be in a pickle of making a decision. But basically, I don't have any reason to not use it at this time. It's not 4K, so if you're trying to transmit 4K, you don't want this. You want the Pro version of the Nano or the Comet. If you want video pass-through, you want the same Pro version of Nano or Comet. And again, they're about twice as much money. Or if you want to be able to connect this to Wi-Fi, there's only 2 options. You want to guess? The Nano Pro or the Comet Pro. And it's about twice the price. So PoE on this makes no sense to me. It's not a requirement. It doesn't have to make sense. I'm pretty sure the JetKVM is PoE. I just don't know why. Somebody must have some really old hardware. If you can't get 5 volts out of your USB, something's wrong, but you know, whatever. Oh, I see. The screws for opening this are in the back. and it would slide out, just kind of as they show on their website. They've already got it opened up. And if you have any questions about it, I'm in communication with them. I think you can email them as well, but you can always leave a comment under the video and I can ask on your behalf if I don't know the answer. I'm happy to do that for you. Eventually, I imagine we'll find these available for sale at Amazon. Currently, it's still a prototype. So when it steps out of prototype, you'll know because it'll be available in retail. Andy says it looks pretty decent so far. I agree. I think with my correspondence with them, they were almost apologetic with regards to the webcam sharing not working. And I really wish they had sent me a version of this. Wherever this was a month ago, it doesn't matter. We're still the first to review it. But I would have liked to have a little hype and see the work that was progressed in a month. Because unless it was a hardware issue, we could always just update it with software. And even if it was a hardware issue, it'd be nice to have the prototype, again, fully knowing it's a prototype, instead of just shipping it to us with all the other backers the same. So why they made that decision, it's their decision to make. It's not like people were beating down their door to do YouTube review videos for them. As far as I can tell, I'm the only one. So why they didn't take advantage of it is their choice. They did send one for review, but again, sending it along with the unit I backed, it's not like having two of them was needed for review. I appreciate the thought. I would have appreciated it more if they would have sent me one prior to when they were filling out the backers, just so we had an idea of how things were progressing, knowing full well it wasn't done. And I guess they were concerned that that wasn't going to represent what was shipping, but it was never supposed to. It was supposed to give us an idea. Like we would have known the shape and the size and the weight. All of that would have stayed the same. But again, it's their company and their choice. I just tell you this because we did reach out. We did make the offer. They did very kindly send us a unit for review. But unfortunately, they shipped it with the backing unit, that we paid for. So, well, I appreciate the second unit. The idea was to get a unit early. That's how I would wind up with two. There's your early model, and then here's the one you paid for, instead of here's the one you paid for and here's one for review sent together. So I'm on the fence about this because I do have gratitude. I do appreciate it. I would have appreciated it more, and I think it would have been to their best benefit that we could have created a little bit of excitement and reminder to the general public that this device was soon going to ship to backers, so people had time to jump on to the Kickstarter, as you can now. It's just that all the backers already got their units. So if you back it now, it's going to be a couple weeks probably before you get your unit. So you could have, had they chose to, decided to do that and take me up on my offer, you could have been inspired by my introduction to the product, knowing it was going to be improved before it ships, but that's what it looks like and that's how it functions. Ordered it and then got yours the same time all the other backers got theirs too. So I wasn't in the meetings and I don't know how these decisions were made, but I don't know why they wouldn't have taken advantage of that free marketing. But regardless, I'm always happy to see another KVM on the market. I like to see that competition, no matter who it's coming from. It could be GLINet, it could be Pico, Luckfox, it could be Arc KVM, it could be Cyped. I don't care. Bring it on. PiKVM, bring on the buffet, man. And everybody can pick what they want out of the buffet. You might be the kind of person like Andy with mini PCs that wants a little bit of everything in the buffet. Nothing wrong with that. I'm the kind of person, I want to go for the things I like and leave everything else for everybody else. And the more options I have, the better that everybody can get what they want. And so competition in the space also means pricing is more aggressive. The most expensive one on the market right now is the Comet Pro. And it's more expensive by a good 40–30%. I don't know why. It's also physically the largest and the most limited. So wouldn't you think that'd be cheaper? it's like I don't know what's going on at GLINet, but it's like they're completely unaware that anyone besides themselves makes a KVM or at what price. I don't get it, but it's not a bad product. It's just I feel I get much better value from other products for less money that are more flexible. And I want to see GLINet bring some originality and value and flexibility to the products that is in line with, or even better, offers unique and novel features that their competitors don't offer. Then if you want to charge me more, it might be worth paying more to get those features I can't get anywhere else. Whether or not it has 5G, I can't wrap my head around that. That again, if somebody gave me an example of where you'd need 5G to connect remotely, that the computer you're connecting remotely to only has 5G access, give me an example of that. Somebody, please. The computer you're connecting from, I can understand needing 5G. But the computer you're connecting to isn't going anywhere. That's why you're remoting into it. I'm lost. So, you know, maybe it's me. Maybe there's a scenario I'm just not considering. I'm begging for this information because somebody thought this made sense at GLINet. Maybe they're the ones to ask. Andy says, you really can't compare this to the Nano KVM Pro. Let's give it time. Well, in the sense of what it's capable of, right? We know this is never going to have more ports added to it, so video pass-through is not a thing. We know this isn't going to have Wi-Fi added to it, so that's not an option. We know this isn't ever going to support 4K. So we already know all this. So in that sense, that's all this can do with regards to what the Nano KVM Pro can do. Now, what it can do better and what new features or benefits this could offer is yet to be determined. As I mentioned with the JetKVM, you don't get USB flash drive, which you have no idea how much that upsets me. But with pretty much everybody else, you can. So I like that they've made that modification. And it shows that it's possible using JetKVM software because that software is open source. But this is not Wi-Fi, this is not 4K, this is not video pass-through, and it never will be. They'd have to come out with a different model with different ports for that. And it would be a much fairer comparison to compare this if we're doing an apples-to-apples comparison to just the regular Nano KVM, the regular Comet, none of the Pros. Because there's only 2 Pros on the market. And that's really all you can compare for those features. But when the Pro costs less than what the less featured version costs, you would have an argument, why even use this? That's not the case. This is cheaper, but if something changes and this is more expensive and the Pro is less expensive and it does more, why would you even consider this, since the Pro does everything this does and more, but this doesn't do everything the Pro does? So for now, the argument is this costs less. So if you don't need 4K, you don't need video pass-through, you don't need Wi-Fi, you don't need to spend as much as the Pro versions of the Comet or the Nano KVM Pro. But that's subject to change. You never know. We'll keep an eye on it. But for now, at its introduction and what it's selling for now, it's a good deal. That's a really good deal. Michael Lavelle said he saw an ad on the television for a Nemo laptop. Wow, I've not seen, well, I don't really watch any television, so what do I know? Josiah Guernsey joins us and says hello. Welcome in. Welcome in. All right. So again, if there's any questions, we'll open the floor to any questions related or not to remote access. And I'll do what I can to provide answers or links to you for getting you to the answer you seek. And we'll give that a couple minutes for people to type in any questions. And if everybody's quiet, then I guess we're going to wrap it up for the day. I'll stick around as long as you want to engage in the conversation. If it's just me talking, then I'm pretty well done. I want to thank Mara, our channel administrator, who's done all the work for our video description, our thumbnails. Our email correspondence with you guys is pretty much all handled by her. If you want to email us, our email address right here on the screen. Reach out to us anytime. We love hearing from you guys. What else? Thank you to Arc KVM. They've been a pleasure to work with. They've been very communicative the entire time. I was leery of a company I've never heard of before on Kickstarter. They did everything they said they were going to do. And, you know, they didn't even have to respond to my inquiry. And the fact that they did, that means a lot to me, and I appreciate them. And congrats for a good prototype here, a good shipping model. It's much better than, in much better, more polished condition than I was expecting it. It's way better out of the box than our first experience with competitors and their prototypes. So kudos, they did that really well. You know, even with the PiKVM, by example, they're still lacking, and it's been months, and they've had one update in 2 months. You know, the folks at SciPede for a while were coming out with an update every week. They were doing 5 updates a month. Now, since then, it's slowed down because, you know, they had some catching up to do, and now they've caught up. Everything else is still now on just a regular improvement track that's not affecting current functionality, but rather either improving security, slightly improving performance or lag, or adding some new features they never thought to add before. So that'll keep going on indefinitely. So for Pico to be so slow and so much of it still doesn't work right, and to only have an update every couple months, it's disappointing. And this is about the same price, and it's in much better shape. Plus they have the cloud service, which Comet offers, JetKVM offers, but SciPede does not offer. But Arc does. And I think that's worth something, because that's something that somebody could say needs a subscription. You know, we'll give you 6 months for free and after you have to pay for it. Nobody does that, but I could understand if they did. So the fact that, you know, SciPede doesn't have that, PiKVM doesn't offer that. You'd have to use Tailscale. But here, in the JetKVM and the Comet, you can use the manufacturer's provided cloud service at no charge. Big thumbs up. What else can I tell you? Thanks to our friends at VIP-URCDKEys for continuing to offer you guys legitimate license keys at a discounted price, so you're not getting ripped off by Microsoft. Thank you to all our members who make these videos possible. A super shout out to our friend Buster, who's always contributing every show on top of that, which is incredibly generous. Very frequently Mark Gaines and Lou Greeny as well. Shout out to those individuals. And many others who contribute less frequently, but it's still above and beyond anything we ask. They just volunteer it. And for those folks, you know, for each one of them, thank you guys so much. You know, Frankie B and Phil Stodd and Raj. I mean, there's so many of you, and I apologize I'm not naming everybody, but it means the world to us. And it's because of you guys that we were able to go out and buy this and many other things that we could review. All you need to do is look at how many other YouTube channels are reviewing this. And the main reason you're not going to see it is because they're not getting it for free. If ArkKVM starts emailing YouTube content creators and offering them the device for free, I think you'll see more reviews. But for the content creators to go out and buy it, that's probably why you're not seeing it. And so it's because of our audience and the support of our audience that we have that option. Green Dragon wants to know, how would you transfer files from your computer USB to the KVM USB? Well, you could do it a couple of different ways, but ideally, you would set it up initially, not after the fact. So like right now, I have direct access, right? So if I take out my utilities flash drive and I plug it into this computer, I would just tell the computer to copy everything from here over to here, so it's all done on that one computer. If I plug this into the streamer and I want to go over the internet, ooh, that's going to be a bit tough. What would probably be easier is if you had a NAS or Microsoft OneDrive or Google Drive, and you uploaded your files to that, and then you logged in remotely to your Google Drive or your online drive and copied it down onto the connected device. You're going to be a while, but it'll work. And you don't have to stare at it. You can just walk away and go do something else. And you can continue to use the computer for other things. It multitasks, no problem. But it's probably going to take, for 16 gigs, pull it off of Google Drive through USB 2 onto this. You're probably looking at a half an hour. But once it's on there, right? Just like a flash drive. So if I wanted to do this, ideally, expediently, I would do it while I'm setting up the KVM. And I would go ahead and plug this in now. And then just tell it, log in remotely and say, copy everything from here to here. I'll show you. Let's do it. I mean, I got to do it anyway, right? So let's see. It says my HDMI cable's disconnected. So did I loosen it? Yeah, I popped it out of there. Hold on. Should bring me back. So let's go to this machine, which means I'm going to this machine's browser. It's not confusing, right? Let's go to window capture is what I want. So we'll do this remotely. Okay. Can I go full screen? There we go. This PC. There's my utilities. Oh, my utilities drive. I guess I took a lot of stuff off of it. It's only a 16 gig drive. I'm only using about 5 or 6 gigs. So I'll say Control A will copy, hit the copy button, or Control A selects everything, then I'll hit copy, and I'll go back, and I'll go to the USB drive here. I don't need that, so that was just for demonstration. Let's delete that. And I'll hit paste. And we're off to the races. It's got to move about 4.2 gigs, and it's moving it pretty slow. We're at USB 2 speeds. So even that small amount looks like it'll take about 15 minutes. And then anytime I plug this in, it's the same as having my flash drive attached at all times. So my optimizer and any tools I use are now part of the KVM. And not permanently, unless it's permanent unless I change it. Unless I format it or delete it, it stays on there indefinitely. So that's how you do it. Appreciate the question. Let's get back over to camera 1 and back over to our chat room. Andy said his grandson just used VIP-URCD keys and it worked out as expected perfectly. Nice. AC's Drafting said, yeah, he did the same thing. Everything worked as expected. Nobody's getting ripped off. And you can hear from our audience that have used it that they're giving us their testimonials. You're like, he's telling the truth. Appreciate it, guys. AC's Drafting saying, thank you, Carey and Mara. I've been at work, haven't had time. Hey, it's a good excuse, man. I'm back home for a month, so I hope to change that. Well, great. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you more often in our chat room. I'm going to hold you to it. Good to see you again. And I'm glad to hear you're keeping busy and staying out of trouble, it sounds like. It's a good rule of thumb, I think. There was another big update from Microsoft. That's just a preview update. Mostly it improves things for gamers. It's not a security update. Whether or not you choose to download it, it does take a while to install. I like to stay on top of all my updates regardless. I don't notice any difference one way or the other. I'm not a gamer, so if it supposedly makes it better somehow, I don't know. But, you know, they had that emergency out of band update, and then prior to that, they had the second Tuesday. It's been a little update crazy. And Microsoft has promised to reduce some of the resource load on Windows 11 to make it more responsive and to listen to the community. Microsoft has said this before, and they didn't do it. So here's hoping we're going to start seeing updates this month and next month. Well, there's not much left of this month. That'll start stripping back like some of the AI and Copilot stuff, and maybe even the advertising and stuff that's consuming resources. So Windows seems more responsive and not so resource hungry. They're saying the right things. Let's see if they actually execute. There's a little shakeup happening over at Microsoft. There's some management changes, and this new manager is supposedly wanting to listen to the end users and has provided a new feedback form. One of the things I'll tell you people really hate is that requirement to set up a Microsoft account on a new install. And they say they hear us loud and clear. What does that mean? We're seeing this from a lot of big companies right now. The Burger King CEO has a bunch of videos saying, here's my phone number. It's not really his number, but you know, sounds good. And if you have ways that you think make Burger King better, or what we can do better, I want you to call me and tell me. So then he follows up with a video and plays back a voicemail, someone saying, you know, you guys used to have great French fries and now they're just not good. I wish you could go back to the way you used to make them. And he says, thank you. We have this person that's our new culinary designer for our menus. And I am putting her #1 mission is to fix our French fries. So they haven't fixed them yet, but the CEO says, I heard you. And enough of you have said it. It's not like one person. Enough of you have said it that this is now this person's new job that we just hired. And their first task on day one is fix the fries. We're seeing the Microsoft CEO, or not the CEO, but the person in charge of the Windows development is a new person who's sort of going through the same, we want to hear from you. If enough people are complaining about the same thing, then that's an item that's going to likely get moved all the way up to the top of the priority list and be done first. If it's a handful of people complaining about a niche thing, maybe they'll do it, maybe they won't. But that's how that's getting decided, supposedly. We'll see how things go. AC's drafting said he's having trouble getting a super chat to go through. That's weird, but that's all right. We just appreciate you being here, and thank you for being a member. Phil Stott said, yeah, talk the talk, let's walk the walk. 100% agree with you. But it oftentimes starts with the talk, okay? I was brought up that you mean what you say what you mean, and a man is only as good as his word. So whether or not we have a signed contract or a handshake, if you and I agreed and we shook hands, they're the same in my world. Even though one has a legality, repercussion or enforcement option, to me they both have the same enforcement option. So that's just how I was raised. If you're not going to be a man of your word, then you're not a man. So hopefully the person in charge at Microsoft, and when I say man, I mean human, not necessarily male or female, obviously. Hopefully they're a person of their word, and we're about to find out. There's Richard DeFries joining us here right at the tail end of the show. Popping in to say hello. Welcome in. You got some catching up to do. And yeah, I've given it enough time for questions. I don't really see any. So with that, I think that's my signal to wrap it up. Thank you all for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed this unique world exclusive review of a product. Don't get me wrong, I really want to see other people review it, but I'm not aware of anybody working on one, and I'm not really aware of people even knowing this exists. So I'm just doing my part here to provide unique content for you guys. And without you, again, it wouldn't be possible, and I thank you all for supporting us so we can continue this path of finding other things that your average content creator isn't even looking at or aware of. And we're able to do that because we're not financed from a corporation. We can do whatever we want. It's pretty cool. That'll wrap it up, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody. Today is Friday, so we'll be back on Sunday. What do I have going on Sunday? My mind is drawing a blank right now, so I guess we'll have to figure it out. I think there's something on the schedule. I just can't remember what it is. So 1 o'clock Pacific time is when we broadcast. It's open to the public, and I hope you'll join us then. Until next time, bye for now.